City Council regular meeting for Monday, February the 25th. Could I please have the roll call?
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Barber.
Present.
Councilmember Berenson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Present.
Councilmember Circo.
Present.
Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg absent. Councilmember Townsend.
Present.
Mayor Turnbow.
Present. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We don't have any presentations tonight. However, we do have a personal appearance. Former City Council person Monique Lewis, who is going to talk to us about Silver-Haired Legislature update and Aging Mastery Program. Monique.
I'm not sure how many on the council know what the Silver-Haired legislation is. Some of you do, some of you don't. I know that I've been in front of this council 2 or 3 times to speak about this, so I won't spend much time. Just briefly, it is a volunteer organization that we try to get the people in Jefferson City interested in what is happening for the elderly. You know, we talked a lot about children, we talked a lot about teenagers, we don't talk an awful lot about the elderly. And just to give you an idea, there are more and more elderly, and with the boomers coming along, which means that they are going to be 65 this year or next year or whatever, we are going to get about 10,000 people every year who are over 65 years old. The area of Missouri is divided into 10 areas of aging. Each area of aging has 12 representatives and 3 senators. We meet 4 or 5 times a year, and we have one big meeting at the Capitol in Jefferson City, which I love going there because I think the Capitol is such a beautiful building, and I enjoy going there. Before we meet, and usually it's in October, which it was this year, before we meet, we discuss what should be our priorities. And usually there are 20 proposals that are given, and then we discuss these proposals and whittle them down to 5. And in the middle of the brochure that I gave you, the 5 that we have for this year are establish the Senior Service Growth and Development Program. I don't know if you recall, but there was in 2013, there was a sequester, and we lost a lot of money. We meaning the aging areas. It's not that we lost it, it's just that they didn't continue to increase what we should have received. So we have never caught up. And the Senior Service Growth and Development Program will not be an extra tax. What we have suggested, and most of the representatives agree, it will come out of funds that are given to the insurances. And 10% of those funds that people pay into the insurances will go to the Senior Service Growth and Program, and that money that will be collected will then be distributed, there is a prorated way that they do that, to the area agencies here in Missouri, so that it can be used for various programs that are needed, i.e. transportation, meals, support for other programs. And so that is what we have. I believe it said 10%, but I talked to the lobbyist for the Silver-Haired legislation, and I think that the people turned it down to 5%. But at least we will have something in this fund which we will then be able to use. The revision of MRX is, there were 244,000 people in the RX program for Medicaid. These 244 people had less money or were on the poverty line, and so they could benefit from Medicaid proposals and getting money from Medicaid to pay for their medication. So this program, the revision of the MORX program, is what that pertains. Out of those 244,000 people, 60,000 of those were the ones that were eligible for this program, but were taken off of the program. And so many of them had to make a decision: do I buy my medicine, or do I buy food, or do I pay my rent, or do I pay the insurance on my car if they have a car? Anyway, that is what we are trying to do. The third one is, which you will understand very easily, increased funding for home-delivered meals and from congregate meals. The congregate meals are the meals that if you go to a community center, we make the meals, or we have a large area. Now, we deal with 5 counties of the west side of Missouri, but this is specifically for those 5 counties. It is not for the other 4 counties that are in Kansas. And another thing that you need to be aware of, and I'm sure when you go and do your shopping, or if you don't do your shopping, I am appalled every time to find out that instead of spending $100, I have spent $150 on groceries. And my car, each time I put gas in it, it seems as if it's more money than I think it should be. But so all the home meals are usually, they are volunteers who will take these meals to them, but we try to at least compensate them for the use of their car and for driving. The fourth priority there is make Missouri income tax bracket more progressive. I am not an accountant, so if I tell you what it is, please, I hope that I'm right. What we are trying to get is to change the bracket so that we will have more brackets and that they will go more, it will be more even, so that the people who are in the lower brackets, i.e. 9,000 a year less, will not pay as much tax as the ones who are in the 100,000 because of the percentage that they pay, which is practically the same percentage as the people who don't have much money. So that is, and I'm not sure that that will ever go, to tell you the truth. I'm not sure at all that the people in Jefferson City will look at that with approval. The fifth one that you see there is approval of over-the-counter sale use of industrial hemp as a supplement. There is much talk lately about marijuana and about the use of marijuana, and this is a request, a priority that we have, because a lot of people want to use marijuana, but they want to use it in the way where it is not illegal. And this would allow people to buy the marijuana. It's not exactly the marijuana that they buy, but this would allow them to, instead of using opioids, as you know, the opioid crisis is pretty bad, and then they don't have to use the opioid, and they can take care of the pain of various diseases that they have, especially arthritis, and if they have other diseases, they can use that without being taken to court because they have used something. In this brochure, you will see also the other supportive legislations that we would like, and I bring your attention to one that I feel very strongly about, is prescription drug monitoring program. We do not have that in Missouri, so, which is one of the reasons why there are so much prescriptions for opioid. We need to have a program where we find out who gives the prescription and how many they actually do, etc. So that is an important one. And the other one, which I've sponsored for a long time, with ban talk text on handheld devices for drivers of all age. And please look at the last three, of all age. I have an article at home where it talks about, yes, we do have a law here in Missouri where you cannot text, but it applies to people 18 and under. It does not apply to you and I who are over 21. So anybody, and actually there are more accidents for people texting and driving than for people being drunk and driving. That's something that AAA has forwarded to us, etc. If you go down that page there is the Missouri Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. This has been approved, and this is a really good program. I do not know if we use that program with our Parks and Rec, but I will get with Nathan and mention that to him. The people have to apply for vouchers, and they get vouchers, and they can go to the farmer's market and buy with these vouchers depending upon their income and depending upon their ability to go to the farmer's market. So that is a good program. The next program, which was approved but is still in a hiatus, is the exploitation of the elderly and elder abuse laws. The problem with this is that the people who are looking after the elderly and who abuse the elderly can do so without anybody noticing what is happening. Also, when they take them to the hospital will not release the medical records to the police or sheriffs or whoever. So this is what we are working on, and the Lieutenant Governor, who is very, very supportive of the elderly, has designated a person to write the rules so that the hospitals will release the medical records to the doctors, etc. Although you can read what else is on there. And if you have any questions, I will take the questions. If not...
Anyone have any questions? If not, thank you, Monique. Very thorough representation of the flyer you provided us.
It's a nice flyer. It's a new one, which is one of the reasons why. Okay. And at least it looks a little bit better than the last one. The last one I thought was flimsy.
Well, thank you very much for coming up and explaining those things to us. We appreciate it.
Can I talk for the next program?
Oh, is there another one? Presentation?
Yes, there is another presentation.
But we've got a business to run tonight too as well. I don't know how long do you think you're going to take?
Oh, about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Well,
I can come back another time.
We initially had set aside 5 minutes for presenters, but...
Oh, I took my time, didn't I? Well, I can come back another time.
Come back real quick. It might be a good topic for a work session for us. Oh. I think you can be much more thorough with those items, and we can have a little more open discussion about it at a work session, if you don't mind.
If that'd
be great.
I will talk to Jeannie about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank you, everybody. And I do want to repeat, the Public Works Department did a wonderful job cleaning our roads. I don't know how many people have said, you need to say something, you need to say something. And so I am saying it out loud.
We definitely appreciate that. Thank you. Next item is staff reports. Mr. Fearborn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Krast to make a staff report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and with Ms. Lewis's opening, I'll give you a little summary of the winter to date. To date, we have responded to 18 events, or mobilized for 18 events. That's over double what we normally budget for. My folks have put in over 2,100 hours of overtime, and we have utilized over 2,000 tons of salt. That is well over our normal 900 tons that we anticipate using. Also, in January and February, we have patched 250 potholes. So we seem to be in a cycle of Monday, Tuesday, we patch the roads, the rest of the week we plow them off. So it looks like it's going to continue in the short term. That does conclude staff report. I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Yeah. Sonia?
I'm just going to ask you to repeat that again. How many potholes? Because a lot of people are complaining about the potholes. And I know you guys are working on it, and I know there's nothing you can do about it, but just say that one more time.
250.
Thank you.
Mr. Holman?
To follow on to Councilmember Abdelgawad's comments, we certainly have some potholes. We've had one of the harshest winters we've had in some time. But I would ask, is there something different that we do when we build or mill and overlay and maintain our roads? Because there are road jurisdictions around us that are in very, very bad shape compared to us. And then there are jurisdictions such as Lee Summit in their new development where that pavement is falling apart over by the Chipman Mall. And that's not that old. And we don't seem to have those seam problems along the edge or the middle that these other places. I mean, we get it in spots where we have water pooling, you know, and the drainage is not as good as we'd like it to be, especially on aprons and entering driveways, that kind of thing. But overall, our roads are, considering the winter, as the best I've seen.
Well, I think some of that is attributable to our street preservation project every year where we do quite a bit of crack sealing, the microsurfacing. That seals the cracks, keeps the moisture out of the pavement, and especially in a winter like this, water is our biggest enemy.
Absolutely. Kudos, sir. I think the condition of the streets in Raymore are as good or better than anyone's around, given the harshness of the winter. Please pass on my kudos to the rest of the Public Works Department.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Circo?
Yes, just one quick question my wife was asking me today. When we put the beet juice down on the roads, which we use, she's wondering why we do it 2 days before the event. I know we're going to get rain or ice maybe on Wednesday morning, and it looks like we put it down today. I guess it lasts for quite a while.
Yeah, it does. And so we kind of look ahead of the weather, and we had some other things that we need to get done this week, so we took advantage of the weather today to
That's what I thought.
To pre-treat. Well, we just pre-treated the major routes.
Yes.
We don't anticipate a very large event, but enough of a nuisance on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Dearborn?
To dovetail off of Mr. Krass's presentation in my area, the overtime hours represent approximately $63,000 in overtime for these events. Of course, we had budgeted some overtime, but not that much. And the total salt purchases for this year represent $128,000 in salt year to date. We will be coming to you all with recommended budget amendments and possibly some creative ways that we can address these, because it is such an unusual winter. I would ask the council to perhaps consider this a single-time event, and we'll get with you on what I have in mind at a work session to make sure we smooth that before it comes to you legislatively, sir.
Okay.
With that being said, I would ask Mr. Icky to make a report for the Communications Department.
Thank you, sir. 2 items out of the Communications Department for this evening. The first, wanted to just remind council members that starting next week, the ETC Institute will be sending out the community satisfaction survey to the randomly selected residents. We do not, as staff, have a say in who they select. That is for them to select randomly throughout the community. Those will be mailed to residents first. If residents do not respond with the pre-posted envelope and survey, ETC does follow up with phone calls about 10 days later. As part of that paper survey, there is also a link if residents wish to fill out the survey online or provide any further feedback through the online version of the survey. And so we receive a couple of ways to fill out that survey. Take about 4 weeks for the analysis from ETC, and then they will be back in late April, early May, and we'll have results of that survey that we can then compare against previous years for the city of Raymore, as well as compare against 30 other communities within the Kansas City region, as well as across the United States. Second item I wanted to update the council on. In January of 2018, the council approved the Raymore Community Foundation, and we spent 2018 and really the first month of 2019 really getting our legs underneath us about how to operate the community foundation, and also what would be the best way for us to go about encouraging folks to donate to the specific programs the council had established. Wanted to give an update in that in 2018, the Community Foundation took about $15,000 in donations throughout the various programs, and this included the animal shelter and the feral cat program. This includes Shop with a Cop that I know Captain Wilson and Chief Zimmerman were very involved in, as well as others, including the Parks Department that also received a number of donations through the already established Legacy program. While we are just starting, I think this is also a great time to remind everyone that, you know, one of the purposes of the foundation was to recognize those that have been giving to individual programs in the past. Now that we have the foundation, there's one single location where we're able to issue thank you letters. We're able to keep track of those who have donated and remind them of the success of those programs, and also show results from some of those programs through a really good coordinated effort among the different departments. And so wanted to just provide that update that after 1 year, the foundation is rolling along very well. I would now entertain any questions.
Anyone? Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Next week's work session, March 4th, for the City Council, 2 items on. It will be the Mike Crash Show. The 2019 curb proposal will be in front of the council with perhaps some new ways we're considering to address the curb work that's being done. Just want to run that past the council, get your thoughts on it, but we'll also be bringing you the areas. Also, because of the latest plat approvals by the City Council up in Creekmore, it's now time for Cooper Communities to address the turn lane changes at 58 and Fox Ridge. We've been doing some study into that, and we'll be outlining for the council what's going to happen on the north side of Fox Ridge at 58 at that intersection to address what needs to be done relative to right turns at that location now. That concludes staff reports this evening, sir.
All right, thank you. Any questions of staff? All right. Next item is committee reports. There aren't any, but we just have one item on our consent agenda tonight, and this is City Council minutes for February 11th. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approved the consent agenda to include item A, City Council minutes, February 11th, 2019.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the February 11th council minutes. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. We'll move on to unfinished business. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3434 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3434 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, establishing an agreement for the purchase of a sewer camera.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the second reading, or to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3434.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3434, sewer camera purchase agreement.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3434. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3435 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3435 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Cunningham at Creekmore third plat, lots 47 through 86, and tracks C, D, E, F, G, and H.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3435.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3435, Cunningham at Creekmore, third final plat.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3435. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the second reading of Bill 3436 by title only?
The second reading of Bill 3436 by title only, An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the Third Amendment to the Kansas City, Missouri Water Services Agreement.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3436.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3436, Third Amendment to the Kansas City, Missouri Water Service Agreement.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to approve the second reading of Bill 3436. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Now move on to new business. The first item on our agenda tonight is the approval of an additional liquor license classification Sunday sales for Boulevard Bar and Grill. It requires a public hearing. I'll open a public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thanks, sir. I would ask Ms. Warner to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you. Oni Chambers, the owner of Boulevard Bar and Barbecue, submitted an application to add a Sunday sales license classification to their existing liquor license. The applicant has submitted the necessary application and supporting documentation as outlined by the city code, and approval of the city license is contingent on approval of the state license, which in speaking to Mr. Chambers before this meeting, he did secure today. And the applicant, Mr. Chambers, is in the audience. Should council have any questions? That concludes my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions of staff? Anyone have questions of the business owner? Does the business owner wish to address the council at this time? Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Hold on.
Oh,
Did we open public?
oh, we did open a public hearing. I need to close the
Close
public hearing.
hearing. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll close the public hearing at this time and ask for a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve additional liquor license classification Sunday sales Boulevard Bar and Grill.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the liquor license classification application for Sunday sales by Boulevard Bar and Grill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please, let's see, the next item is a delinquent occupational licenses. Are you going to read the resolution on this one, Jeannie, or it doesn't require a resolution? It does require a hearing. In front of you is a list of those items, and I will go ahead and ask Jeannie for a report anyway, if you want to give a report on it. You want to give us an update, or?
Yes,
Mr. Bourne?
she
Yes.
does, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. This item before council is to consider certain actions, pertaining to the delinquent occupational licenses of businesses which are located within the city limits. Requirements for the occupational licenses, they do expire December 31st of each year, and those requirements are outlined in Chapter 605 of the City Code. Notice of this hearing was sent to each business owner by both regular and certified mail, as provided for in Section 605.040B2B of the City Code. This hearing does provide an opportunity for business owners to address the City Council and provide defense or evidence as to why the penalty sanctions should not be imposed. Since the publication of the council materials, you do have an updated list in front of you that removed Ambassador Travel, Baker Construction, Forever Green Professional Lawn, and Rock U America from that delinquency list. Remaining on that list are 21 storefront businesses and 20 home-based businesses. Staff does recommend that any business deemed by the council after this hearing to be found in violation of City Code Chapter 605 to provide direction to the city clerk and send a letter giving the business owners 10 additional days to comply with that chapter of the City Code, and advise the business owner that if compliance is not met within that time frame, a misdemeanor citation will be issued through the Raymore Municipal Court. That concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Mr. Zur, where do we go next on this particular item?
You have the opportunity for a hearing at this point from any business owners who are in the audience, Your Honor.
Okay. I don't believe there are, but if there are any businesses that are still on the delinquent list would like to come forward and address the council at this time for, I would assume, for additional time, potentially?
That would be correct, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm not seeing anyone come forward. What are we looking for by way of motion?
The motion would be to direct the city clerk to proceed as outlined this evening and in Resolution 0028.
Okay. And are we prepared to make that motion?
If you ask for it.
I will.
Let me see if I can get it right. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve staff's recommendation to proceed with the initiating the revocation process with the list provided.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to move forward with staff's recommendation on this particular item. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Holman.
I have a question for staff. Ms. Warner, this is not by any means your first rodeo. You have done this year after year after year. You listed about 21. There were 2 that came off the list in the time that you were able to print the materials to us. And so just as you very articulately put, we will be sending out a letter assuming passage of the motion in front of us. In your experience, how many of those in that 10 days will rush in here to take care of this?
My hopes is high with the majority.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Can I please have the first reading of Bill 3400 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3400 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the zoning map from BP Business Park District to PUD Planned Unit Development District, a 136.38-acre tract of land located in the west half of Section 29 and part of the northeast quarter of Section 30 in Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This item is listed as requiring a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report on this item.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Grant Harrison, representing the Van Trust Real Estate Development Group, filed a request in the fall of 2018 to reclassify about 136 acres of land in the Good Ranch just south of North Cass Parkway in order to allow for the development of the Raymore Industrial Development Park. This request has been brought before you several times. We've continued the public hearing and the application several times. All the parties involved in this development continue to work together, that being Van Trust, property owner, the city, to move the project forward. There are just a lot of integral parts to this development process moving forward. It is staff's opinion to uphold the integrity of the process that we would ask that the request this evening be tabled. What we will do, if it is tabled, it allows for the public hearing process to start over with the council. We would re-advertise, re-notify the affected property owners when this would be ready to come back in front of the council for consideration at first reading. So in the spirit of keeping the development moving along, we would request that you table it this evening, and again, we will notify the public when it's ready to be brought back forward. Okay. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of staff at this time? If not, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item. Well, I'll close the public hearing, I apologize, and entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move to table Bill 3400 indefinitely.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded to table this item. All those in favor? It's unanimous, 7-0, one absent. Motion's tabled. The next item, could you please read Resolution 1866 by title only?
The reading of Resolution 18-66 by title only. A resolution of the Raymore City Council approving the Raymore Industrial Development Preliminary Plan located in the west half of Section 29 and part of the northeast quarter of Section 30 in Township 46 North, Range 32 West, Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. This also requires a public hearing, so I'll open a public hearing at this time and ask for a staff report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. The report would be the same as the previous. We request that this item also be tabled indefinitely, and again, we would re-advertise before this is brought back before the council for consideration.
Okay. I don't see anyone from the Van Trust or the landowners here in the room today, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time and entertain a motion to dispose of this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move to table Resolution 1866 indefinitely.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded to table this item indefinitely. All those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the first reading of Bill 3438 by title only?
The first reading of Bill 3438 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Kansas City Audiovisual for the purchase and installation of a projector and screen for the Raymore Activities Center in the amount of $11,133.95, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
Thank you. Is there a staff report, sir?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Mayberry to make a staff report on this agenda item.
Good evening. This project will purchase and install a digital projector and screen for the Raymore Activities Center. Staff issued a request for proposal, and one completed proposal was submitted, and that was Kansas City Audiovisual for $11,133.95. Staff recommends Kansas City Audio Video following a review of the price submitted and reference background checks. A little background information on this. The projector and screens that we have over at Centerview in the rooms right now, this would be a carbon copy of those. Makes sense to put the same projector in, that way we can keep just limited amount of parts for the projectors. It will be mounted on the north wall of the gymnasium. The equipment that runs it was stored back in the storage room, except for an iPad. We're able to control this, whatever's projected with an iPad. So that concludes staff report. I'll take any questions.
Sir, any questions of staff? Mr. Holman.
I know you said it's the same projector, but it's also, we bought those projectors from KC Audiovisual as well, correct? That's what I thought. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3438.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3438, award of contract, rack projector screen.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the first reading of Bill 3438. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries unanimously, 7-0. Could I please have the reading of Resolution 1913?
The reading of Resolution 1913 by title only, a resolution of the Raymore City Council approving the extension of the preliminary plan for Alexander Creek subdivision located in the northeast quarter of Section 13, Township 46 North, Range 32 West, all in Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
Thank you. Is there a staff report?
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Carteret to make the staff report on this agenda item.
Thank you, sir. Resolution 19-13 is a request to extend the expiration date for the Alexander Creek preliminary plat for a one-year time period. Staff recommendation on this request is for denial this evening. The current preliminary plan for Alexander Creek was approved back in 2007, so it's approximately 11 plus years ago. The current property owner, Slee Development, was not the original developer, but they did purchase all the undeveloped lots and the undeveloped land of the subdivision back in 2014. Currently, there are 33 lots still available for building permits in the second phase. At the pace that they're currently building homes in the development, they built 5 in 2018, they built 6 the year before. They have several years of inventory of lots left before they would be ready to invest in the next phase of the development. So we're looking at this one-year extension. They'll be back next year. They'll be back the year after that because they won't be in a position to move forward with that next phase. They've stated that to us several years in a row now. Since that preliminary plan was approved, we've had several code changes that would affect the planning of undeveloped land, our street buffer ordinance, our stormwater treatment, stormwater control, cul-de-sac design, et cetera. We've had multiple changes to the code. It is staff's opinion that due to these code changes and in talking with Mr. Slee today in corresponding with him on this request that when they're ready to move forward with the next phase, they will come in and submit a new preliminary plat at that time to move forward. We're pleased that they are developing the land. They're building out Alexander Creek at the fastest pace that they can. They'd like to do more per year, obviously, but in working with them, I think it's best at this time to let this preliminary plat expire and have them come in when the time is right under our current code at that time to move forward. So we do recommend denial of the request this evening. Should council approve the resolution this evening, it is written to be in the affirmative, and it would grant an extension to February 26th of 2020.
Okay.
That would conclude staff report, sir.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Would ask Mr. Zur at this time, so if the staff recommendation is denial, it would be difficult for someone to make the motion to approve this particular item. So at this time, what is your recommendation?
There is the prospect that, Your Honor, that without a motion and a second, it would die for lack of the same. So therefore, it would not be approved for the extension. You do have the alternative option of putting together a motion to approve it and then seeing if anyone was willing to vote for it or second it, but that would only be if a member of the council was willing to make that motion, who would then also have to vote in favor of it.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Mr. Fairmore?
That was well summed up.
All right. Thank you. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this particular item. And I'll ask again. And due to a lack of a motion, the resolution fails at this time. And we'll move on to public comments. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council at this time, I would ask you to please step forward, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Seeing no one, I'll move on to mayor-council communication, and I'll start with Mr. Townsend tonight. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You caught me off guard there. Nothing significant tonight other than to acknowledge and also commend Public Works on the snow events that we've had. And if social media is any indication, as Mr. Circle has stated, now the white stripes on the road is the warning of the weather for everyone to start stocking up. So kudos for getting out there and putting the stripes out and getting us prepared for the weather events and taking care of the streets. Again, good job. All involved in the overtime that everyone's putting in to make it happen, getting out in the weather to take care of our streets and the residents is commendable. So thanks again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I originally wasn't going to have anything, but I spoke with my mailman today, and he was really kind of concerned about some of the things that he's seen driving around delivering mail. And he specifically talked about in the afternoons on Huntsman, and not in my ward, but talking about how many people he's seen that have driven around school buses while he has stopped. So he's blocking part of the road, the bus is blocking part of the road, and someone will still go around and zig between the two of them. And so I wanted to share that certainly is, well, it's illegal, but the main concern is we don't need anyone hurt. You know, the children that are getting off the bus, if there's parents waiting for them, especially with the ice on the ground, you never know when a kid's going to hit a spot of ice and slide. And God forbid where they slide could put them in danger. So just from our friendly mailman, remind us to be careful of the kids and follow the law. Thanks.
Great reminder. Yes. Mr. Circo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few quick things. One, again, which I say a lot on the roads. The people are, I wave at them, we talk to them, I stop them, and just congratulate them constantly how diligently they work 24/7. They never give up, and they get things done. Two, of course, we were at the gala the other evening here, and Delgawad and I, and we had a great time. The building was sensational. The speakers, the video, everything we had there was awesome. I mean, it was really good. So we had a great time. It was pretty well full. And everybody really thought that building and what we've done, what you've done, was outstanding. So kudos to you guys for all that, Mr. Carteret. And the last thing is, It's a personal note. Congratulations. I just had my 6th great grandchild born this afternoon, my 2nd great granddaughter. And I know, and as a guy, you're going to ask me, what's her name, how many pounds and inches? That's up to my wife. I'm a guy. I forgot already. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Mr. Holman.
Thank you, sir. A couple of items. One, thank you to Mrs. Lewis for being here this evening. She was my longtime next-door neighbor when I lived over in Timber Creek. Served on Parks Board with her for a while. She's been as active in the community with the possible exception of Mrs. Hubach, I think. She's been very active in the community, and I appreciate her coming before us and kind of giving us the update on things, and maybe we'll talk to her again at a work session. I got to say it again, kudos again to Public Works, having driven multiple road authorities within the area. My experience, of course, I drive Raymore more than the others, but we got to be one of the top ones, Mr. Crass. You've done a great job in building the foundation of our roads and keeping them in a good, safe condition. It would be impossible to expect anyone to have a perfect road surface given the harsh weather we've had, but you've done, I think, as you and your crew have done as good a job as anybody could expect, and it shows. It certainly does. So thank you again for that. I would concur with staff's decision to let the preliminary plat expire on the last item. One of the things that we see time and time again with both commercial and residential development is opening of a plat, and it hangs around for 10 to 12 years or more, and it seems like they really don't want to go back through basically the hassle and paperwork of having to start it over. And so that became kind of I guess almost an expected response of the council. They would send a request for a 2-year extension, and we kind of gnawed that down a little bit to a 1 year, and that kind of became our precedent. But one of the things we typically ask about, and you typically provide before we get there, is what's the status? Do we have much building going on? Are they going to do things in the future? Because just extending these into perpetuity is not doing them or us any good. Come back with your new plan when you're ready, and we'll look at it just as we should. So thank you. I think that was a very prudent decision on staff's part, and I agree with it 100%. And then last thing I have, if any of you have not recently been up to Hawkridge Park. I know we didn't have an update from Parks and Rec tonight, but they've made quite a bit of progress in the last 2 weeks. I haven't even been up there for several days. I know at least half the roof was on the amphitheater. It may all be on now because they've been working regardless. And usually when those guys are up there, somebody from Public Works is up there with them. They've really been involved in that project. Shelter area, I think all the stonework masonry was done, the fireplaces are up, and the roof was on last I checked. So it's really going gangbusters. I'm sure those guys are just chomping at the bit for the asphalt plants to open so they can put the trail down. But you can, if you drive up there, you kind of have to peek between the houses, but it's really becoming a beaut. So go take a look if you get a chance. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to repeat some of that's already been said, but I think it's worth repeating. Again, Ms. Lewis, I think she's probably left. She's smart. Anytime she comes and talks to us, her information is very valuable. It's getting more valuable for me because when I look at the number 60, I'm closer to that number than 50. So it's certainly something that's starting to get make me awake a little bit. Also, when she mentioned baby boomers, and I see this approval of over-the-counter sales use of industrial hemp oil and supplements, here they come. Here's the baby boomers coming. So we knew it was coming. But it's a good program, and I know my mom has the lunches brought to her, and that has been very valuable. So I know a lot of what these folks do is very valuable, and certainly want to encourage her. I want to mention on the primary plat, letting that go too, Jay, I know added to it, but one of the things that kind of caught my attention, Mrs. Hubach's name was mentioned, and she always would say, hey, if we want to be a first-class city, we have to act like a first-class city, and our city has changed and evolved. So I think that's wise. I think for that recommendation, I think it's stuff, that kind of stuff we need to do, make sure that our these developers are up to the latest and greatest of Raymore. So that's good work there. Mr. Crass, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, great job. Got around just fine through all these events, just waited for your crew to do their work, and they do a great job. Want to make a comment about Mr. Fairborn and the budget. I know he's not happy about the extra costs, but I can tell he's not panicked. And just like personally, when I have an event at my house and I have to pull money out of savings, I don't like that, but I don't panic. And Mr. Fairborn does a fantastic job to make sure that we plan, even though it's not usual, we plan for the worst. So I appreciate what he does, and I know that we'll take care of it, and everything will still be maintained. So thank you.
Ms. Abdelgawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things to clarify. Mr. Circo and I both were at the gala with each of our spouses, not there together. It was a fabulous gala that the Ray-Pec Education Foundation held over the weekend and raised quite a bit of money to help support our school district. I was happy to go and be there and had a great time. I also feel like I should clarify, I was not criticizing Public Works about the potholes. I was actually praising. I know I've heard people talking about potholes. A lot of those conversations are about where Raymore starts. And I feel like, sometimes we want to paint that line across the road that says, this is Raymore, right. But just to reiterate that, we don't have potholes because we haven't been working to fix them. We have potholes because of the weather, and we have been working to fix them, and that's why we have a lot less than some other communities. And kudos to your teams that are out there working all the time to help keep the roads clear and patched for us. And then finally, I wanted to thank Monique, Ms. Lewis, for coming. I think it's incredible what she does, the time she puts in as a volunteer to be the voice for our community on that silver-haired legislature. It's a lot of work. She does a lot of research into the topics they're discussing so that she can be knowledgeable and have a conversation about those with the people who make decisions for our state, and then to bring back the information and share that with us and other groups in the community. So she's a hard worker, does a lot for our community, and so just to thank her for giving us the information and for the work she does with that group. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Berenson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will also thank Monique Lewis for everything that she does for the city and for attending tonight and giving us the update. I asked Councilman Barber tonight when I got here, and I was happy to hear the answer. For this, it's age 60. It doesn't go by just hair color, so that was good to know. And then I also want to thank city staff. In the last 6 months, I think I've maybe gotten 2 or 3 citizen concerns, and dozens of people complimenting, especially Public Works. So I want to thank the city staff for everything they do and making our jobs even easier. So please pass that along to everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I agree with you, John. I've had several complaints from folks, but have been resolved most efficiently by going through Mr. Fairborn, who then generally gets right on things with the correct department head, and it really works out very well, the system that we have in place here. And I'm really proud of him and the staff for taking those on as priority concerns when we do pass those along to him. The other day, I wanted to kind of bring it up again. I know we had a moment of silence at our last meeting, but the service was the next day for Mrs. Hubach, actually on Wednesday of last week, and I was able to participate in that. Mr. Fairborn and I both participated in that event. A lot of wonderful things were said about Mrs. Hubach, all well-deserved. She will be missed. Her family gave a little updates on things as they were growing up as well, which were very interesting. And just a wonderful family. I got to know some of the kids. I don't really only knew Jocelyn and Clayton, but I got to meet Dessa and Wesley, and it was really a great memorial service for Mrs. Hubach, a great send-off. And last but not least, I'm looking forward to the survey results. That'll be very interesting for us to see how things have changed, a couple of new items on the survey to get people's input from. Hopefully that'll most of the folks that get them will fill them out and turn them back in. And I'm encouraging those who do get it to please do so. As soon as you get it, fill it out and turn it in. Give it some thought, and we really appreciate your input. It does help us move forward with our strategic planning. And I think that's all I have. Do we have any reason to move into executive session, sir?
No, sir.
Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
I'll second the motion, sir.
Motion's been made and seconded for adjournment. All those in favor? It's unanimous. We're adjourned.